A therapy protocol rigorously validated in randomized controlled trials with one specific population does not automatically translate into equally effective treatment for clients from different cultural backgrounds, with different explanatory models of mental illness, different family structures, and different relationships to help seeking and stigma. Cultural competence research has transformed how psychotherapy is adapted and has produced measurable evidence about what actually improves outcomes across diverse communities. Cultural competence in psychotherapy encompasses three interconnected components. Cultural awareness, involving a therapist's ongoing reflective recognition of their own cultural background, assumptions, and potential biases that shape their clinical perspective. Cultural knowledge, involving genuine, specific understanding of a client's particular cultural context, including relevant beliefs about mental illness, family structure, and help-seeking norms, and cultural skills, involving the practical clinical ability to appropriately adapt therapeutic communication style, treatment goals, and intervention techniques based on that cultural awareness and knowledge for each specific client. A client's cultural explanatory model of illness, their culturally shaped beliefs about what causes psychological distress, whether attributed to biological, spiritual, social, or moral factors, and correspondingly what kind of intervention is believed appropriate and likely to be effective, significantly shapes whether a client engages with a specific proposed treatment approach, how they interpret a treatment's apparent effectiveness, and their overall satisfaction with care, meaning. Effective cross-cultural treatment requires genuinely understanding, rather than dismissing, a client's own explanatory framework for their distress. Meta-analyses directly comparing culturally adapted versions of established evidence-based treatments, such as CBT modified to incorporate culturally relevant metaphors, examples, and explanatory frameworks, to unadapted standard versions of the same underlying treatment protocol, generally find that culturally adapted versions produce meaningfully better treatment outcomes and engagement specifically for the target cultural population the adaptation was designed for, supporting the value of deliberate cultural adaptation while still preserving the core evidence-based therapeutic mechanisms and techniques of the underlying validated treatment protocol. Research distinguishes surface-level cultural adaptations, involving modifications to language, examples, and superficial presentation to increase cultural relevance and relatability, from deep-level adaptations, involving modification of the treatment's underlying theoretical framework or core therapeutic mechanisms themselves to better align with a specific cultural group's values or explanatory models, with evidence generally finding that effective, evidence-preserving cultural adaptation typically involves substantial surface-level modification alongside more careful, selective deep-level modification, rather than either extreme of leaving a treatment protocol entirely unmodified or fundamentally restructuring its core evidence-based mechanisms. Significant, well-documented barriers continue to limit access to culturally competent mental health care for many communities, including elevated mental health stigma within some cultural communities that discourages help seeking in the first place. Practical language barriers where insufficient availability of bilingual or multilingual providers and trained interpreters limits meaningful communication, and a persistent, well-documented mental health workforce diversity gap, in which the demographic composition of practicing mental health professionals does not closely reflect the demographic diversity of the broader population needing care. Community-based mental health intervention models, which train and involve trusted local community members, sometimes called community health workers or peer navigators, as intermediaries connecting formal mental health services with community members who might otherwise be reluctant to directly engage with unfamiliar mental health institutions, have shown documented promise in multiple studies for improving both initial engagement with mental health services and sustained treatment. Participation, particularly within communities where cultural stigma or historical mistrust of formal healthcare institutions represents a significant access barrier. Cultural competence in psychotherapy is not simply an aspirational ethical ideal. It is an empirically supported, evidence-based practice, with culturally adapted treatments consistently outperforming unadapted versions for their target populations. Addressing the persistent barriers of stigma, language access, and workforce diversity remains essential to ensuring evidence-based mental health treatment genuinely reaches the diverse communities it is meant to serve.